on trade and those kinds of things, and that's not as certain.
Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of this hour. Israel launches a large wave of airstrikes on Tehran, targeting what it says is Iranian government infrastructure after Iranian missiles send millions of Israelis into bomb shelters. The strikes come as the US-Iran war enters its sixth day, with thick smoke seen over Tehran. Air raid sirens sound and 2 blasts are heard in Jerusalem after Israel says it detects missiles launched from Iran. The alert is triggered by Israel's warning system across central Israel and as air defenses move to intercept the incoming threat. The United Arab Emirates says its defenses intercept 6 Iranian missiles and 131 drones, though 1 missile and 6 drones still landed inside the country. The UK embassy earlier urged residents to shelter in place as regional attacks linked to the Iran-Israel conflict continue. Meanwhile, explosions are reported across the region, including in Qatar and Bahrain, while Azerbaijan says 2 Iranian drones struck its territory. A tanker is also damaged in the northern Gulf, with Iran claiming it hit a US ship as the conflict spreads beyond Iran and Israel. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says 4 fighter jets will be sent to Qatar to strengthen defensive operations as US-Israel strikes on Iran continue. He also confirms evacuation flights have begun, with 4,000 Britons returned, while defending his decision not to join initial strikes. EU and Gulf foreign ministers urge Iran to immediately stop what they call indiscriminate attacks on Gulf countries after emergency talks held by video link. The joint statement warns the strikes threaten both regional stability and global security. Italy's Defense Minister Guido Crosetto says the US-Israeli strikes on Iran clearly breach international law in Rome's strongest criticism of the attacks so far. The comments come from Italy's right-wing government, which has sought closer ties with US President Donald Trump since he returned to office. President Trump has offered extensive US air cover and support to Iranian Kurdish groups if they launch an offensive against Iran. The outreach to Kurdish fighters in Iran and Iraq comes as Washington seeks to pressure Tehran, with Trump reportedly urging the Kurds to choose between aligning with the US and Israel or with Tehran. Turmoil is continuing in the Middle East. We have some statements coming from the Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to start this hour. He has accused Israel of the Azerbaijan drone attack which occurred earlier today. This comes as Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has accused Iran of carrying out a terrorist attack after a series of drone strikes targeted an airport and a school in the country, wounding 4 people in the process. Aliyev blamed Iran for the attacks, calling it a direct terrorist action against Azerbaijan. He stated that the Azerbaijani military has been placed on high alert and instructed to prepare for retaliation with increased readiness to conduct any necessary operations. Aliyev also called on Iran to apologize for the ugly drone incident. Turkey quickly condemned the drone attacks, expressing strong opposition to such actions and urging that they end immediately. The Turkish Foreign Ministry stressed that these attacks could increase the risk of war spreading in the region, calling for de-escalation to avoid further conflict. Now, joining us to discuss the ongoing conflict which is spreading across West Asia is Mark Sutherland. He's a geopolitical commentator. He's joining us live from London. Thank you so much for joining us here, Mark. As the days go on, of course, the sixth day of this conflict, Azerbaijan now a subject to drone attacks. The country has condemned it as an Iranian terrorist attack, Iran accusing Israel of carrying it out. What more can you tell us about Azerbaijan and where it stands in a conflict like this? It's the conflict here now spreading closer towards the likes of Europe, the likes of Turkey. What have you made of the developments today coming out of Azerbaijan?
I think, Tom, it's good to be with you. I think a good place to start, and that other people have been stating over the last few days, hence from sort of very straight away virtually into this, when we saw rockets coming out of Iran, they then, other than attacking Israel, they then initially attacked seven other countries, and then evolved from there. So the idea is, you could say, from a military point of view, if you're making assessments, say by attacking all these other countries and by doing a pile on there, that they would then hope that those countries would be ringing up at the White House going, can you stop this? Can you sort this out? Can you have a chat with the Israelis to calm this down, stop this? Because we are being attacked. In other words, they would then pressurize the countries around. We have then got to look at, if you look at that map up north, you look at all the stans, and you begin to look at the history of that area, which is extremely fascinating. And right up there, you've also got the Kurds as well. Let's bear in mind Azerbaijan recently in the White House, signing deals as well. You've just laid out the fact that Azerbaijan says that we were attacked, airport attacked, and then Iran is then saying, well, this is Iran, we're blaming Iran for those drones. I'm sure that I can't comment on that. We don't know certain details. But one thing we do know, that I'm sure that Azerbaijan is going to turn around and say, well, no, we're not going to put up with this. The key issue as well, Thomas, just quickly, is to look up at the makeup of people, tribes, clans, descendants within Iran, because it's quite complex when we begin to look at this and look at the allegiances, and also remember, especially in regard to the Kurds, as I've said on other occasion, if you go back round from their history from recently in 1895-ish, many years ago, but pushing for their own country as well. There are so many dynamics to this, which is also a concern, and also as it's been mooted that maybe the Kurds would now get involved in the ground offensive on the ground. Thomas.
Azerbaijan, the latest of the 13 countries that have been struck physically over the past 6 days. That includes Iran and Israel in those numbers as well. 6 days after starting this conflict, do you think the Americans and the Israelis expected this level of response from the Iranians?
At the end of the day, we're not privy to conversation that goes behind closed doors diplomatically. And the reason I say that is look at all the visits that President Trump has made to some of those countries surrounding. Give an example, when welcoming leader of Saudi Arabia to the White House, the conversations that would have been had with Azerbaijan. I can't say that officially, but I'm sure that I know no doubt when we hear this, that people war game out everything. And they're also fully aware, for many, many years since 1979, the amount of deaths that Iran has been responsible for in regard to American lives and beyond, and that it is central as the terror state of the world, and then what it breeds, and also within Israel as well. We've got to remember, from the 7th of October, you're looking at this ring of fire, whether Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, etc. So this is what they are far greater than me there in their decision making, but they are fully aware of this, I am sure, and also it's a risk that they have calculated. Thomas.
Yes, Mark, do stay with us. We have further developments coming out of the conflict. We have statements from the Indian Navy that has launched a search and rescue operation to support Sri Lanka after a distress call from the Iranian warship Iris Dana. The incident occurred 20 nautical miles west of Galle in Sri Lanka's Sar region. The Indian Navy deployed a long-range maritime patrol aircraft and diverted its sail training vessel INS Tarajini to assist in the rescue efforts. Additionally, INS Shark had set sail from Kochi to aid in the search for missing crew members. Coordination between the Indian and Sri Lankan authorities remains active as the search continues. Mark, what does India's decision to assist an Iranian warship in this time of war tell us about India's maritime doctrine, especially in the height of these geopolitical tensions that we're currently seeing?
I'm not an expert on their maritime doctrines, but what I will say is to you, look, just remember that Mr. Modi has recently, a few days ago, given a very supportive speech to the country of Israel a few days ago in the Knesset, and also remembering the Prime Minister's reply to that, and also the historical heritage of Jewish people that are in India. At the end of the day, and also if you're looking at the Indian administration, where it is mooted to say, well, we trying to help diplomatically. The geopolitical map is changing. You and I have discussed this. We're fully aware of where Iran is seeking to get oil from. Seeking to sell oil to Russians, Chinese, etc. The links then with Venezuela. We then go back, unfortunately, to the Indians buying oil off Russian ghost ships. There is all of this that is playing out. Plus Iran giving supplying drones to Russia. At the end of the day, if you then have humanitarian, you're at war, you see people in the sea, then you are going to go and seek to rescue them. And also within the military decisions that Israel and America are making collectively and individually for different reasons that we may get on to discuss. But this is what happened. You're not going to leave people in the water if you're thereby. You're going to do what you can to them rescuing them. But bear in mind this: the Americans have gone after the Iranian Navy because of the potential attacks that they could then do on their ships. That is how they view their progress in that arena. Thomas.
Joining us in this discussion as well is Yossi Kupawasa, an Israeli intelligence and security expert. He joins us live from Tel Aviv to discuss the ongoing conflict. Yossi, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast. As I asked Mark earlier, pleasure. As I asked Mark earlier, we've now seen the likes of 13 countries struck in this conflict. One could say destabilization, one could say obstruction around the entire world. When it comes to flights, we've seen the likes, even maritime actions from certain countries being disrupted as well. Did Israel and the United States expect this war to have the impact worldwide that it is indeed having?
Well, I don't know, but I guess they did, because the Iranians kept it didn't keep it as a secret that this is their intention to what they plan to do. They were saying that we are going to have a regional war, and we are going to hit American targets in other countries. And this was clear that once they try to hit American targets, they may hit non-American targets as well. This was very clear from the beginning. I mean, the scope of what they did might be a little bit more than what was expected. Attacking Saudi Arabia and attacking Azerbaijan and who knows, maybe Turkey and Cyprus. This may be beyond what people expected, but for them to hit the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain was definitely within the expectations of everybody, because they kept it. They didn't keep it as a secret.
And in terms of this update, Iranian warship that sent a distress signal as far away from the Middle East as Sri Lanka. From Israel's perspective, what does this tell us about the presence of an Iranian naval vessel so far from the Middle East? What more can you tell us about the Iranian Navy, its capabilities? We know that Donald Trump has cited to destroy the Iranian naval force as one of the key elements of his agenda to fulfill before this conflict is put to a close. What more does that tell us about the capabilities and the breadth of the Navy here?
Well, the Americans are operating against the Iranian Navy, and they have already sunk something like 20 ships. And so I don't think this is something out of the ordinary. The point is that it's being done far away from Iran. And that is something that has to do with the Iranians looking at themselves as a global power, not only as a regional power. They want to be a global power. They operate their vessels in the Mediterranean from time to time. They operate in, they even make travels to Latin America, to Venezuela. So this is not a surprise that they are present in areas, in places far away from Indian shores. And the Americans were probably following that and made sure that they hit it by surprise.
Okay, Yossi, do stay with us. Mark, do stay with us. We're turning over to the United States for another development coming up next, where the US House is set to vote today on a war powers resolution aimed at halting President Donald Trump's military action against Iran. The vote follows a similar measure in the Senate, which was defeated along party lines. The vote is expected to be close, with Republicans in control of both bodies. The resolution would restrict the president's ability to continue the war unless Congress approves it. A separate resolution affirming Iran's role as the largest state sponsor of terrorism will also be voted on. Mark, coming to you first with this. A lot of critics have sounded alarm bells after Donald Trump went and started this conflict along with Israel, as he didn't get congressional approval. Do you think this resolution here puts those critics to rest?
Potentially. We also got to go through history. I don't think with some of the actions that President Obama took, nor did in regard to Libya as one example, nor did President Clinton in regard to Kosovo as another example under his presidency. I don't think they just went ahead with that. And as you would say, of course, it's along political lines, but people have short memories. But to be fair as well, I can understand the caution, because some of the politicians that are then now in the House or in the Senate, they've also had military experience. They've had military experience in regard to the Iraq War as one example. But I would propose to say, before people criticize me, that I think we're looking at something very something different. And one of the reasons why we're looking at different is because we have to bear in mind that Iran is such a state sponsor of terrorism around the world, and we have to bear that in mind. And hence why, as dear Yossi has just said, in regard to where Iranian ships end up, that is all part of taking what they can do, what they would like to exercise, and what they're capable of out. And we have to bear all these things in mind. But of course, they are going to come against and say, President Trump, this is an action that we disagree with, and it's also along political lines. And just finally, I'll just say this: where were those democratic voices in regard to 35,000 and far more of beautiful Persians that were killed on the streets in Iran that happened a few weeks ago? Where were their voices in regard to that? Because I think there was crickets, as we say in America, or deafening silence outside. Thomas.
Yes, and Yossi, a lot of analysts are looking at this situation and saying that this war will be extremely damaging for Donald Trump when it comes to the midterms. Are you concerned about the president's power being restricted, possibly come November?
Well, I don't know if it's really going to be negative, having a negative impact on Donald Trump support in the midterms, because much depends on the results of the war. Nobody knows at this point how this war is going to end up. And we are in the very early stages of this war, so this is going to last probably several more weeks at least. So it's too early to say. If he's going to be able to bring about a change in the regime, or at least a change in the capabilities of this regime, in a way that is clear that to everybody that he has actually managed to get what he wanted to achieve, then I think it's going to play in his favor. But if not, then the opposite is going to happen. I don't think there is much disagreement about the fact that Iran is a bad country, a state sponsoring terrorism and so on, so it deserves to be, and everybody wants to see this regime change. The question is whether this act was justified, and of course it was justified, because this is a regime that not only poses a threat to the stability and the security of everybody outside of Iran, but also a threat to the people of Iran themselves. So something needs to be done. And, what is more imminent than the fact that they've already killed 35,000 of their own people? So it's clearly something that has to be done about it. And the United States is the only country in the world that is ready to take upon itself such missions. Thankfully, they have the Israeli capabilities supporting them in this operation.
Okay, Yossi, Mark, do stay with us once again. We have updates coming from Europe, where the United Kingdom has said that it was temporarily withdrawing some staff and their dependents from Bahrain as Iran presses on with its retaliation campaign in the Gulf. The UK has added that due to ongoing security issues, the UK has taken the precautionary step of temporarily withdrawing some embassy staff and their families. The UK has also said that its embassy continues to operate as the situation is serious, and that the UK does not expect it to end in the coming days. Mark, do you think Keir Starmer has made the correct decision here? He, of course, has made numerous speeches now in terms of the situation. Donald Trump and him seemingly falling out. Donald Trump, as he does, making that headline-worthy statement, calling him not quite Winston Churchill in an off comment, of course, topping newspapers around the UK. What are your thoughts in the way that he has acted, and the UK as a whole has acted for the span of this conflict?
As it's a family show, I'll try and keep it clean. Frankly, his behaviour and their policies, as far as I'm concerned, have been despicable. We need to be supporting our allies, and he hides behind this whole definition of international law, which is another huge subject in itself. It would be understandable that you then speak to embassy staff. You do have a responsibility to them. And again, I'm not privy to certain decisions and discussions that are going on behind closed doors. But I will say this, that when a prime minister stands up before the country and another group of people from a particular demographic and says, well, we didn't bomb Iran, I'm sorry, I end up doing the impersonation. I find it disgusting. It doesn't show us as a credible power in the world. In fact, we're being mocked, and it's understandable. And President Trump is right to say that Keir Starmer is no Winston Churchill. There's no way I'm going to argue with him on that. And I will just clarify and say this, Thomas, just because the Prime Minister of the UK or other politicians are then coming out with the comments that they are, doesn't mean that they represent a lot of people in the UK and their views, because they don't. And there are many people that stand with the actions that the Americans have taken and also the Israelis have taken. And I will say this, and particularly in regard to Israel and what has gone on from the 7th of October 2023, is that they are fighting on behalf of Western civilization. Now, other people may disagree with me on that. That's their opinion. But we don't have time to go through that. But this is what is up at stake, and also within all the mix that we have to bear in mind constantly. And when you need strength and people to actually stand up and say, we're going to make the tough decisions and we're going to stand with our friends and allies. And unfortunately, I would say that the Prime Minister of the UK and the administration have certainly let us down, and they've certainly let their allies down. Thomas.
Yes, Mark, thank you very much for taking the time in joining us here on the broadcast. It's always a great pleasure to talk to you. Yossi, stay with us. We're turning over to some further developments. Loud explosions have shaken Abu Dhabi as the UAE air defense systems responded to a suspected missile threat. Authorities said defenses were activated amid heightened regional tensions as Iran continues its campaign across the Gulf. Residents reported multiple blasts across the Emirati capital. Officials are closely monitoring the situation with security forces on high alert. Now we turn over to another update where the United Nations' International Maritime Organization says around 20,000 seafarers and 15,000 passengers are currently stranded in the Gulf due to the ongoing war, as shipping routes have been disrupted and traffic through the Strait of Hormuz has effectively halted. The situation has turned into a humanitarian and logistical challenge, with many crews and civilians unable to move as tensions remain high in the region. In response to the maritime disruption, the White House says the US Navy could begin escorting oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz if necessary, and has ordered measures to support shipping safety and maintain the flow of energy supplies. Yossi, the Strait of Hormuz, a crucial waterway that sees 20% of the world's oil transporting through, effectively halted, as we've cited. Is the United States military going to be enough to quash those oil concerns going forward as this conflict continues?
Well, yes, I think they have enough power. They gathered really a very impressive power in the Gulf and nearby, and they can do the job. But it's not going to happen in 1 or 2 days. It's going to take some time before they manage to take care of all the threats emanating from Iran to the shipping in the Hormuz Straits. And we'll see how long it's going to take them. They are determined to do that. They've already sunk, as I said, 20 ships, and they may sink more. And there are all kinds of weapons deployed along the shore that affect the safety of the shipping in the Straits of Hormuz. They will have to take care of them too. As the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff said, this is their area of responsibility, and they are going to take care of that. It's going to take a while, but the world can live without this 20% of oil for more than a while.
Yossi Kupawasa, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us here on the programme. Great pleasure to hear what you have to say, as always. We now move on to our final updates of the hour. Iran's health ministry says 11 hospitals, 7 emergency centres, 9 ambulances and 4 other medical facilities have been damaged by US-Israeli attacks on the country, significantly affecting health services across Iran. The World Health Organization has also verified 13 separate attacks on healthcare infrastructure in Iran, including hospitals and emergency services, amid the ongoing military campaign. The WHO also reported that 4 healthcare workers have been killed and 25 others injured in these incidents, and that ambulances and medical centres suffered damage from nearby strikes. Next, we have some breaking news coming from the US president. Donald Trump has posted on Truth Social urging Republicans to passionately support the Save America Act without any dilution. He described the fight for this legislation as a country-defining battle for the nation's soul. The act includes measures like requiring voter ID and proof of citizenship, banning mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military or travel, prohibiting men from competing in women's sports, and forbidding transgender mutilation surgery for children without parental consent. Trump stressed that this legislation is crucial for the nation's future and urged Republicans to push it forward. Well, that's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.